Hello and welcome to another Streaming Media East Connect session. I am Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I am the editor and VP of Streaming Media. We've got a terrific panel set today to talk about direct-to-consumer services, and this is our fourth virtual streaming media event. And we've got one more virtual event coming up in August, and then we're going to be back in person in Huntington Beach for Streaming Media West in November. So if you're interested in speaking at that event, or interested in sponsoring it, you can go to the link that Steve Nathans-Kelly just posted in the chat and find out more about what we've got planned for Streaming Media West. As always, this and all of our Streaming Media Connect sessions are archived on our YouTube channel within a day or so of when they run live. And so you can look for them there or go to the Streaming Media website and look for the cleverly titled link called Videos and click down and select Conference Videos to watch them. A couple of housekeeping notes. The chat will be open, but we do request that you put any questions for our panelists in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. That just makes it easier for us to keep track of them. Before we jump into the discussion, though, I'd like to thank our diamond sponsor, Signient, for helping to make Streaming Media East Connect possible. And we've got a brief video message from them now.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up, it's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signient. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signient handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today. A journey without limits.
So let's dive right in. Let me welcome Chris Pfaff from Chris Pfaff Tech Media. Chris, how are you?
I'm well, Eric. Thank you for having me. And we've got a great group here. It's 4:05 here, top of the hour in New York. Look forward to a good discussion. So let's do it. All right. Without further ado, let me welcome our panel. And by the way, for those of you who thought that we had four panelists, we did at one point. Sadly, Louise LaGrange from BBC Select could not make it. So we have the law firm of Goodstadt, Meyer, and Greenblatt. They're all full partners. But seriously, it's a great panel. We have John Goodstadt. He's here, Global Director of Ad Sales, Media and Entertainment from Roku, from LA. Hello, John.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Meyer, the Meyer is Karl Meyer. He's the head of Samsung Ads, Media and Entertainment, North America. He also joins us from LA. He's just about a mile away from Karl. So from John. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
Great. And Ian Greenblatt is the Managing Director and GM of Technology, Media, and Telecom Practice at JD Power and Associates. He joins us from Chicago. Hello, Ian.
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. And go Cats.
It's great. Go Cats. Hi, Paul. So first question here, and this is one that I know all of you can get into, but I think it's particularly important. You know, we're in the middle of upfront week, and of course we had the new fronts. The whole OTT business and direct to consumer, whether it's SVOD or AVOD, is just exploding. AT&T offloading Warner Media to Discovery. Amazon is about to buy the MGM library, which seems to get shopped around about every 18 months or so. So the question is, the TV is still very much a hit-driven business. The platform may not matter, but the question is, how are insights driving decisions for media buyers, brands, and programmers? And let's start with you, John. What are you seeing on that side?
Yeah, for Roku, I mean, we had our new front. We kicked it off last week, and we had 3 key messages, right? For us is that we're seeing streaming now reaching broadcast prime numbers, right? It's we saw it during the pandemic with the rise of cord cutting, and that's certainly going to continue. And secondly, as the other piece for us is in terms of we look at streaming also as having this big canvas, right? To tell these big moments that we're used to seeing in linear TV, and now being able to do that with new ad experiences. So I think you saw we recently launched a new brand studio. So we'll start to do branded content that's going to go beyond the 30 branded content type of with different marketers. So bringing new ad experiences to the streaming platform. And the last one, I think, which is the most interesting, and that my team works a lot on is the ability to kind of bridge the upper awareness brand awareness, or upper funnel brand awareness of TV that we've all been used to, but then merging that with the digital brains of that we've seen in digital and mobile for a long time, and being able to then merge that full funnel of upper funnel and lower funnel, and we're seeing this big shift to to more performance, data, and automation in the TV world.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because, of course, you mentioned your brand studio, but of course, you've got Roku Originals, which are rolling out, and so we were seeing yet more content, not just the channels that you help producers and production companies launch. So that's got to be very, very interesting, situation from your side. And of course, that's I just let's stay with you for a minute there. And you mentioned the pandemic. I'm guessing that the numbers have been pretty good for the last year on that side, right?
Yeah. I think, thanks for bringing up. Yeah, so we acquired the Quibby library earlier this year for the Roku channel, which is our owned and operated channel that launched in 2017. And as we continue to scale that, we've seen 2x growth in both reach and engagement over the last year. So we've certainly benefited, right, from shelter at home over the last year, and we were talking earlier. I mean, it feels a bit like I'm kind of dating myself, but when I started in TV and on the cable side, and at Turner many years ago, they were trying to pull away from broadcast and tell that story. And I think a group of us, like Karl, we've been kind of evangelizing OTT for 5 years now. But it just started to really turn the corner, and we're seeing that right now in the new fronts and upfronts. And then just lastly on the Roku, so we rebranded it to Roku Originals, and tomorrow is what we started. We call it National Streaming Day, that we launched about 5 years ago, and we will be releasing 30 original shows through the Roku channel. So check it out, featuring Kevin Hart's Die Hard. We also have Liam Hemsworth and his show. So it's a lot of really great content, and it's kind of a new foray for us on the Roku channel side.
Yeah, and so happy 5th anniversary of National Streaming Day. I will check that out, and we're going to shift over to Karl now. Karl, what's your take on where we stand in terms of insights driving decisions on the OTT side, and obviously at Samsung Ads, I mean, you guys have a lot to talk about recently as well. Why don't you tell us some of the new things that you've rolled out?
Yeah, so we had a big presence, the biggest yet at New Fronts this year than years prior. We made announcements relative to I think the obvious, which is time spent in search and discovery within our UI, and so we're going to go deeper on that. We've realized, we did long ago, that street signs and lamp posts, when you've got people that show up, that 40% of them don't know what they want to watch, and they spend about 20 minutes navigating through the UI, and then when they delve into content, we we measure them through our own first party proprietary ACR data. Our scale's very significant. We were in 45 million households US, but our numbers on ACR are 2.5x, our nearest and closest competitor. So we go deep on that. And, the measurement we do, round the clock is significant, driving efficiency, accuracy, and reach at scale. We're bullish on our advertising ecosystem and the size of that, 220 million connected devices. So much of what we do, we've kind of turned the corner and helped the industry move towards a data-driven television experience, linear, a long time coming, no doubt. Another big commitment that we announced just last week was a partnership with Nielsen DAR, the obvious commitment there to, linear measurement. And, that's a nice combination of ACR combined with Nielsen ratings. So for us, we've got customers. In my world, I run the media entertainment vertical, and it's all those stakeholders, the legacy businesses of linear that have now transformed or evolved into the streaming services, the obvious ones, right? The Peacock that's hopefully coming, but the Paramount Pluses that are keying in on kind of that yin and yang of linear and then time shifting, and the two combined bring a really powerful look at driving lift and engagement. We do a lot of stuff, creative, A/B testing, what performs better. And it's all immediate. That's the beauty of, owning the hardware and the software. We're able to pivot quickly. And I can jump into content too.
Please tell, because again, I think I would ask you the same question I asked John. I mean, what have you seen over the last, say, 14 months, both from the content side as well as the sort of viewership and the behaviors that you see, because you have a very unique lens into all of this.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. It's exciting to see, like John, I've been committed to this for some time. 1999, I got, my first look at the future at TiVo and, saw a massive shift in behavior, and definitely that continues. Choice and control is the theme, and definitely there is a big shift. For instance, our FAST service, it's referred to as Samsung TV Plus. It is 160 channels plus, but 3 years ago we cobbled together a few just to test the theory, and now it's like last year we saw a 32% increase in time spent. Of those, that audience that keys into
and you're expanding globally with the Samsung TV Plus as well.
It's available in 100 million households worldwide, and territories like LATAM and EU and now APAC, and it's just great to see. And our fast channel partners love us. We have a unique kind of tech to that. Our service is baked in and integrated into the platform itself, so it's essentially hard coded, and baked inside of that is the EPG. So it's where the viewer gets to the local broadcast stations, and that's a habit you just never break. So we get a lot of traction on consumption, but the numbers are about 55% are cord cutters. Another interesting stat is, 90% of those that go into our fast service don't have a stick or a puck connected. So it's interesting. I think we've done a good job, with the UI and making the experience pretty sticky.
Yeah, I just full disclosure, I'm a proud Samsung Curve owner, and one of my phones is a Galaxy S10. So I do throw things back and forth, and love that. Ian, what do you see in terms of how insights are really driving this direct-to-consumer explosion, both on AVOD and SVOD?
I want to point out, but beyond that pandering to Samsung, I'm that broken guy who has one of every animal in his home. I'm sitting under a TCL Roku television with another Hisense version of it outside, and two gigantic Samsungs and elsewhere scattered around the house. So I'm a big fan of all of these platforms. I also want to point out that right off the bat, you asked the two platform guys if platform matters.
Well, I said platform doesn't matter. So there you go. So remember that. And they didn't argue one bit, because
you guys didn't take the bait.
They didn't. No. You can dive in and whip them up. Whip them up, baby.
Because I have to tell you, well, I'm
just kidding.
Come to their aid, not their aid. They don't need it. But I will tell you that platform does indeed matter. And the reason why is because the UX, UI, CX folks at both of these fine shops have spent, it's decades now, building, refining, identifying the ways to delight those customers, bring them back, and if it's search, recommend, discover, fulfill, all of the really difficult ways and functions that are required in order to get that get eyeballs on content, and never mind measure them, but just get eyeballs on content. They've done, and they've done it really well. And so, no, platform does matter. Doing it well matters. Taking every opportunity to delight your customers matter. And I'd say that you're talking to two executive representatives of companies that get it.
Yeah,
to answer your question, though, and you asked a reasonable one, do analytics, how are the analytics in streaming going to change the landscape? And I'll tell you that it's nice to be right. I helped start the very first OTT, live linear broadcast television service. It was in Europe. It was called Zatu. We came to market before Hulu. And the whole point was bring not just the impressions, but so much more of that rich data set that's available about the impression made to those advertisers. It just made the world of difference. I was just a little early. I'm very glad to see that the market caught up. I'm very glad to see that it wasn't, the much anticipated death of broadcast television still isn't there. The biggest audiences are still in broadcast. And so that's, now, is the biggest CPM still in broadcast? I think that might have changed, but I will say that the analytics available make entirely new experiences possible. They make entirely new, very targeted, very relevant advertising campaigns possible. They eliminate so much of the waste that, and I think it was Wanamaker who said, half my impressions are wasted.
I don't know which half. Yeah.
Wanamaker would have loved streaming media.
I think he would have been one of the godfathers here, because of course we keep seeing sort of reinventions. I mean, one of the, I think, sort of upfront flavored announcements that I saw was Facebook announcing the launch of a live shopping service. And speaking of how tech matters in this case, I mean, an old client of ours from Stockholm, Bambuser, is totally repivoted from being a video streaming platform for producers and distributors into being a shopping. It's live video shopping, handheld. So to your point, Ian, I mean, I would think that we're looking really at this incredible opportunity for what I call niche content. Others will argue with that, but say maybe specific audience sectors. But it seems that whether it's cord cutting, creating the opportunity, or analytics, to your point, Ian, what do we think about this incredible moment we're in, whether it's SVOD or AVOD, again, for niche content to be served? What do you see in that, John? I would assume that Roku is a big believer in that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we've got over 14,000 channels on the platform, so there's something for everyone. I think everyone would agree here that the beauty of streaming is that the control is now in the hands of the consumer, right? And that's why you're seeing this massive shift, right? You control your experience and what you want to see. But for us, I think it could be a daunting experience, right? Discoverability. There's so much content on the platform. So I think Ian kind of touched on, it's like we've spent so much time on how do we help our partners, right? Be discoverable by, we have 50, we just had our earnings last week. It was almost 54 million active, households, 150 million, streamers. I mean, so it's a massive scale. And we do that again with the waste, right? We eliminate that. It's all through data, right? And when you register your Roku, for all the Roku users, right, you give your credit card, your name, and your email, and that is really the engine of everything we do, from content, to our advertising business. So a few things that that we're able to help is using that precise targeting. That's kind of the underpinning of everything we do. So when you're on the Roku home screen, you're not just served an ad, right? There's actually, precise targeting to why you're getting that ad, and that drives outcomes. And that's kind of what we're starting to see, is a shift to Ian, you mentioned CPM. I would say in the M&E business that we're doing, we're actually helping our channel partners drive outcomes, measurable outcomes. It's not as if on a more of a CPA basis than actually on a CPM basis. And then the Roku channel, which we talked about earlier, but that is a place for us to allow these partners, a lot of these niche partners, it gives them this canvas now to for more discoverability. So they could be through a fast channel, like Karl talked about. We also have a whole host of these live linear where you can curate your library into these fast channels, or you can also have a just in one of the hubs there. So there's a lot of different options, and then you've got search. Right. So universal search is something that Roku really differentiates. There's so much that's put into search. And then there's a lot of editorial ways. So there's a lot of different ways and touch points that we can help these niche partners. But certainly it gives you that, you talked about like a la carte, right? Personalizing like your a la carte menu is certainly where things are going.
Yeah, I laugh because that was one of my questions to say, is this like the a la carte menu of the aughts, which of course the powers that be were fighting tooth and nail against, and now they've had to throw in. But Karl, when we look at niche content and how that's driven and how you serve that, I would expect that this is really a prime moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have something for everyone on our fast service, kids, sports, news. I think, the niche side comes in to play when it's relevant, and what obviously it's been relevant in the last year is, news and elections and COVID. And so, again, kind of going back to being able to pivot quickly when you own and operate your own platform and the software. So, we launched a COVID Now channel. We had, election channel. We partnered with the big broadcast networks that made sense for us, finding content that's just been housed and hidden somewhere, deep in a library. We brought, forward, we've got live content. We've got a whole array. We definitely lean on the personal aspect. That ACR ingredient is pretty unique to that, and you'll see.
And that's your proprietary technology.
It's our own, first party proprietary tech that we definitely at scale,
which is obviously cross platform, right?
Well, we take the linear ACR data off live, so it's at the glass level. The TV has to be on. It's hitting your retina, and that's unique in and of itself. We can go on a tangent on that, but
we got time. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, look, I like to call it, Karl. It's easy way to explain is like it's just the Shazam, right? Remember Shazam? Right. For it's basically like Shazam for TV, right? And so it's certainly a big driver. Exactly.
Right, but there's no fooling the tech. I mean, because the television's on.
Yep.
It knows you're sitting in front of it and serving, content. And, there are well over 250 different fields of data, genre, actor, all that fun stuff, channel, program level. And we use that, back to your point, Chris, I think you were going towards it. Well, how do you leverage that cross device? And that is essentially, what we do within that ecosystem I mentioned through our own DSP is we retarget, starting with linear first on, mobile, desktop, and the rest goes on. We have our own DSP. We also go out into the wild and acquire those impressions and target, and then come back with the data and, business outcomes and all that, all the results are there. So it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's just great to be, at the, with your foot on the pedal and being able to throttle up or down and drive efficiencies and really look for, audiences that are kind of hiding under seat cushions and the rest.
That's great.
Yeah. And Chris, can I just add on to what Karl, he talked about the DSP. I mean, that's what I, earlier I was hinting towards is like this shift, right? To it's, someone said earlier, like TV is not dead, it's alive and well. It's just being reinvented, right? And so the idea that Roku acquired as well a DSP called DataZoo about 18 months ago, we've now rebranded as OneView, and with our alliance as well recently with Nielsen, and we've been partners with them for a long time. Like it's marketers and agencies are going to be able to actually measure reach and frequency across 4 screens and be able to manage it. And that's really game changing.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning the D2C acquisition. That's a really big, play from the programmable side for what you guys do, and really, speaks more to the efficiencies that both you and Karl have talked about. Ian, what are you seeing from your side in terms of your research with respect to how audiences are being served, niche audiences, and what the return is there?
Certainly. So, we do our U.S. wireline television and ISP survey. We call it the Wireline Survey. We do that every year.
When does that come out, by the way?
So we're coming up on it. I think that one's going to be October. I'd have to look.
Okay.
But September. I'm sorry. But the reason why I bring it up is because 30,000+ respondents talk about about their specific satisfaction, what drives their satisfaction in the video services they consume, and we're just focusing on TV, not ISP. Some of the fun stuff that we came up with when we shook out the last one, and we do pulse surveys as well. That's intermittent. The TV study is a 12-monther. That's a big continuous.
That's a big panel, by the way.
Yeah, that's a big continuously fielded one. We also do pulse surveys in between those in order to get more.
What are those? Describe what those are.
A pulse survey. So our larger longitudinal surveys are, you could spend 30+ minutes on one of those surveys as a respondent, in order to make sure that we're getting respondents who maybe don't want to sit through one of those, or we want to ask, instead of 50, 60, 70 questions, we're looking for getting answers to 10 really important questions for some of our wireline clients. Right, we're looking for specific answers. We'll put out pulse surveys, which is a shorter, quicker, faster survey. We get into market and get the answers back really fast. In fact, this morning in Washington Post, one of the answers to one of the questions from one of our pulse surveys was featured, and that was, what does the average American household spend on streaming services?
And what was the answer?
$47.
Wow. Yeah.
Which seems like an awful lot, but as I think about what my credit card bill is every month.
Right. But that's fascinating, because, I look at it, I mean, we're all in the industry, and so we can all justify or even write off, all the spending. And when I think of all the services I've subscribed to, it's probably closer to like 17, which includes Acorn and Criterion, and God knows what the next one's going to be. But the fact that, there was this hue and cry about cord cutting, and it's like the average is 47 as a spend, and what does that mean for next year, right? Maybe it's 60, who knows, right?
So I always hated the term cord cutting. It's
shaving, dumb. Yeah.
Right? It's you're shifting the video, shaving some of the video services you pay for. You're just really putting them onto the other side of the pipe. So you're really not cutting the cord.
That's
I
it.
used to make fun of people, say, "Oh, we cut the cord." Well, how do you get your internet? Oh,
how do you get your internet?
I still have that.
You still need a cord, buddy, unless you're getting 5G.
You mentioned earlier at the top of the hour, we talked a little bit about what happened with streaming services during COVID. Right, because we've all been safer at home. We've all been draining all of the catalogs that we've had access to, looking for new shows after we've completely consumed all the ones that we already had seen. And we saw that 12% of subscribers viewed their provider more favorably after COVID. Now, there's part and parcel of that is, thank goodness you're here for me. Thank goodness you're continue to be reliable. You continue to have high quality.
So can I pause that for a second? I'm curious if you had a question in there as to if there was a consideration, if their provider, say early in the pandemic, would run out of content, let's say at the end of 2020. Was that part of the thinking? Okay, well, forget that then.
That wasn't really the angle. But 48% of consumers binge watch programs through those streaming services.
Amazing.
So at least half of them are saying, I will drain the entire catalog, and I'll do it in as few sittings as possible.
I mean, for me, I had said no to Narcos for, a couple of years, and then suddenly this thing called the pandemic hit, and I just became obsessed. And, and I thought, yeah, it's really nice to have the time to watch that and get hooked on it. Not to single out one provider, that was Netflix, for those who don't know. But yeah, tell me more about what you've seen. And I'm curious, Ian, I want to stay with you for a second here. Your wireline report, of course, you cover sort of that multi-platform side, which includes telecom. So I'm going to ask you the question. Telecom seems to be shedding media assets faster than the cicadas are coming out. You had Verizon selling Verizon Media, now called Yahoo again, and so now Guru Garapan is the head of Yahoo. So right, and AT&T ditches Warner Media. And BT is getting rid of BT Sport. I mean, is this just a cycle we're seeing, or is that just a bad mix, or what's the deal?
So it's absolutely cyclical, right? We've all watched this happen time and time again. Right. I remember back when was I working there at that point? No, when AOL consumed Time Warner, right?
Right.
And all anyone could say is, it's great, it's digital, it's great, it's digital. And everyone who knew anything about content or television or digital for that matter, said, that's not a good idea. You should really don't let that happen. And yet you just discussed where that went, because right. AOL was part of that Verizon Media sell-off that Guru is launching into the next phase. I'm actually excited to see what happens when they're freed from the legacy concerns of a telecom company. Similarly, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Zaz does with the combination of Discovery and Warner Media. I feel badly a little bit for my fellow former Warner Brothers Studios folks. That was my first media job. I worked right. in legal at Warner Brothers. But I'll tell you, I feel bad because it's just been 3 years since they were reporting to Dallas, and now they're reporting.
And the consolidation, really, a lot of it also started to hit even earlier this year. A lot of my colleagues in Burbank who are saying, look, there's been more bloodletting. So hopefully they'll be free of that, to your point. But it really, it goes back to what you're saying about, yes, the platform matters more than the distribution side of it. From this and the vertical, this idea of vertical integration with, your mobile phone. No disrespect to Samsung, because you guys seem to have figured it out pretty well without getting hamstrung. But I'm just curious. I mean, do you see any examples? I mean, I would guess my question to you would be, so are we going to see Comcast throw off the lot, because they would seem to be the last telco ISP standing in that regard, right?
I don't think so. I think the integration between Comcast and NBCU has sustained itself. I think they've done an exceedingly good job on the integration, but they also run the businesses at arm's length, and they all do a good job of it, right? So I think that that one's going to be fine. I would look really closely at Viacom CBS to see where that ends up, because that's the last major, once MGM disappears, that's the last really interesting catalog, I think, of a certain size, right?
Right.
There are fantastic catalogs out there. I don't mean to malign any of the smaller ones.
I mean, we've got
Viacom has a certain gravitas to it, with a number of really interesting nets underneath it. That one's going to be interesting to watch. But no, to your point, Chris, I think it's cyclical. I think this will come back around again. Although now that they have been consumed by companies of, again, really significant size, should be interesting to see what happens to those.
Well, and I'm going to sort of slice a different side of that question, because of course, we have Karl representing Samsung Ads, which is part of, the bigger Samsung. I mean, you had a situation where, Apple gets into the content business in a very big way. And, you might say, is that a lost leader? But again, when we come back to driving data and customer experience and delivering, Karl, I'll throw it back to you. I don't think you guys waste any time or lose any sleep thinking about what Apple is doing vis-a-vis content, right?
No, I think we watch from afar, and we're we're helpful where we can be. And, that comes in the data and the insights and helping them, get closer to their consumer and, how they engage and interact with that content and what's successful and what's not. And because the data comes so fast and it's not at a lag, like you might see with set-top box data or something like that, that they're able to react and it's immediate and they can optimize as such. So, I mean, we're rooting for them. We think they've got certainly a good roster of content. I'm a fan of the morning show. Loved it.
Yeah, no, it was well done. I like Ted Lasso, actually. It's it's a surprise hit in a way, right?
Yeah. But no doubt the competition is steep. I mean, right? They're a new entree into the space, and I think they've come to realize that. And you see it you see it happening and excelling in other areas like the traditional business, the Peacocks of the world coming to the table. And so yeah, it's getting interesting. It's fun to watch from the front seat or front row, and but at the same time be able to help our partners succeed and make every turn, if you will.
Yeah, a question for you is, I mean, because this panel is really talking about what it takes to launch a successful DTC, and we've been talking about a lot of different topics and pieces of that. But I mean, you're in a position to really do kind of an end-to-end sort of service, if you will, for a rights holder, let's say, mm-hmm. or even a brand. And it seems like, and again, given your brand itself and what that represents, and sort of the technology that you have to bear, that you really can do some pretty amazingly creative things. Are there any new, whether it's sort of pods or different things that you're experimenting with, or even just different insights that you're looking to push out there in the next 12 months for this exploding DTC universe?
I mean, this is what I'd say, or what I could share is, we're getting really comfortable in the living room and, the connected home, and that has clearly started to expand beyond the living room into the kitchen. And, the devices, the TV certainly is, the family hub, if you will. And that's starting to appear on, the glass on our refrigerators, and all of that data and how you kind of optimize against is interesting to us. I mean, and I come to you from the TV side of the business, but, oftentimes you forget how sizable the mobile Samsung piece is. And it was just, massive, recently, the last 6 months, where we brought that family, the mobile team, into our org. So now that's the bit of, the 220 million devices US that we're able to access mobile data. And, these streaming services live not only on the TV, but it starts and often is activated through a mobile device. So how do you take that data, stitch it, weave it into, the conversation? And it's just interesting, certainly, of like the things that we're finding and the data that we're mining, and, how do the kind of the yin and the yang of a mobile and a TV device work in harmony, and how do you kind of use the two to test creative and target different audiences and all of that. And that's, a new foray for us that we're excited about, that I can openly share. But yeah, we've got other things that I wish I could tell you. Just not at the point yet.
But you've answered, you did answer my question. So thank you. You said, I mean, that's huge. But it's also interesting because, of course, you look at it from, since I mentioned Apple, of course, they have made programmatic buys over the years, and they keep working on that. And John, I mean, as you mentioned, DataZoo, I mean, similarly, I mean, you can supersize and super serve clients in terms of the scale. But I'm also curious, because the Quibby was really one of the only casualties of the 2019-2020 streaming wars, and they did live up to their name. They were quick, they lasted quickly, and they did bite. But you took a bite and you brought them in, and I think that was really kind of cool because they had a lot of great technology. I mean, that was but that looks like a really interesting opportunity, and looks like an opportunity for you to extend deals and relationships with people they were working with, right?
Yeah, certainly. If I could just touch on with Karl, because I think it's really interesting in terms of how we work with these channel partners. On the Apple front, your Apple question before, I think you talked about Amazon looking to buy the MGM library. Right. Ian brought up like Viacom's the last library. What we're seeing in my team is we work with all the channel partners, right? And so we've made this transition to performance-based selling. And so we're basically trying to, akin to what these partners expect from a Facebook, Google, Amazon in terms of performance. And what we're seeing is like for an Apple, is that you got to have a library, right? So you can drive all the acquisition with that IP, right? Like the morning show and Ted Lasso, but you're going to need the library for retention, right? And so that's where the Viacoms and the Peacocks, right, where they're bringing back some of their library back in. Mm-hmm. That will be very interesting. Right now, we're all in this acquisition phase. All these super services are just trying to drive as much acquisition, but it's going to get really interesting as they now make this shift. I mean, Disney is reported they're already at over 100 million, right? Yeah. Like they gotta start to say, all right, how do we continue to retain? And so those libraries, like Ian, that you said, I think are huge. Apple is one that has to figure out the library side. But when we work with these partners on their launches and so forth, there is a playbook that and for us, it's like we call it the streamer's journey. So think about it, like we help them. There's three key moments of this journey, right? There's a stat, I think it's from Nielsen, it's 7 minutes for a user to decision on content, right? And so you gotta intercept them in those 7 minutes. So when you unbox your Roku or your TV, right, when you're registering, there's touch points there to capture that user to install them. Then when you're searching and discovering, that's the hardest part of streaming, is like, what content could I find? And using our targeting data and so forth to then allow that user then to, how can we help them drive signups when that user is trying to search and discover? And then ultimately, we're all comfortable is like that lean back experience. And that's where the engagement and the retention. So when they're watching video ads and so forth, what we're used to, how do we kind of bring them back? And so we look at, when we're working with these partners, it's acquire, engage, and retain. And that's kind of the playbook that we're working with them on.
Yeah, Ian, I think you were going to say something, so I'll throw it back to you.
I got lost. I was following the story. I really like the way you put it together with the streamers
I think
playbook.
John's right, though. I can jump in. The conversation is definitely turned to retention, and the words like churn and reducing churn, and content plays into that. It's got to be fresh and it's got to be new and original. App opens are really kind of what make or break it. And now that a lot of these big apps have, got a foothold, it's keeping that ball in the air, if you will, and making sure that they're continue to have, success in retaining, but then growing and, measuring that content and how effective that is just becomes really fascinating, and the value we can bring, if we get behind the door of that, that app, which we hope one day, that partner will let us in.
Well, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I think that was something I wanted to ask you, with respect to the whole app universe. But I think, in some respects, it gets down to more maintaining an audience rather than reducing churn on that level. And obviously, there's a lot of technology there. But I think, Ian, to your point about library, I mean, you answered one of my questions, which is, does that heft matter? But I guess it's really a question of what drives most viewing. And do you have research on that?
We do. One of the things I wanted to talk about, though, is to jump back to one of the questions you were talking about before I got lost in
John's excellent customer journey. And by the way, that's very cool. Thank you, John. That is cool.
Perfect encapsulation of it. But to your answer, right, to then go to why the folks have joined us today, is what is the direct to consumer requirements, right, for experiences? Brand, first and foremost. Right. Number one was brand. If I were to point at why Quibby failed, I would ask you, what's a Quibby? Quibby didn't have a brand. Quibby had to rely on the brand of the individuals and the content they acquired or put out, and it wasn't enough. Also, I would say, don't put out that long a free trial. if you get
it was kind of long.
And don't launch during a pandemic.
Yeah, dumb.
Not during a pandemic, no.
Dumb, Jeffrey Katzenberg. Why did you do that? Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far.
I'm joking. Just kidding.
But what I would say is, there was there were a couple bungled launches, quite frankly. I wouldn't call it bungled, but I'd say that there were opportunities missed, right? Even well, on Quibby, right, with you could only use it on mobile.
I was going to say, really, I mean, like I've been watching long form content on mobile for years. I mean, why did that mobile only? Come on, what are you thinking?
Very silly, and also saying it with a Samsung representative in the room. Consumers will always default to the best screen they have access to. Now, if it's a solo experience, right, and you're sitting with your phone, you'll throw it up on the TV if you can. If it's you have your teenage kid with you and you're co-watching, but they're watching something else and it's on a small device, and you're watching on the big 55 to 75-inch panel you have access to, consumers will always seek to maximize the experience, and they'll do the best they can with the equipment they have. So that's why when I saw during the launch that it's mobile only, well, that's over now. That won't take long before that explodes. And it was fairly quick thereafter. But it comes to brand. So, right. So first and foremost, brand. That gets you the opportunity to get in front of the customer. Right. Now you have permission to at least play. So if they've opened the door, now you've got permission to play and take a look. How are you going to keep them there? And that just as John said, it's about how you keep them there, how you retain them is what else is behind that door. And so to see these other catalogs bringing the wealth and breadth and depth of those catalogs to the forefront, to be very accurately mined, right? To very carefully be presented to those consumers. That's where the magic is, and that's how you keep them. So it's brand gets them in the door. It's smart services to provide and surface the wealth of library you have to present to those customers. That's how you retain them. As well as keeping them happy, never missing an opportunity to delight those customers, right? Because delighted customers don't churn. Delighted customers tell their friends, right? Those are promoters, not passives. Detractors tell everybody. Right. Promoters tell their friends. Detractors tell everyone. So,
you're so right. But that leads me to a question. I'll stay with you, Ian, for this one. I mean, are we even at a point where we should consider that there's either an oversaturation or we're about to hit some kind of a curve in terms of consolidation with direct to consumer?
I don't think so. I think there's a while back, so a million years ago, I worked in Motorola Labs, and what we did was we tried to figure out what the share of wallet was for how much would an average family spend on discretionary like cell phone, cable, et cetera, right? And way back when it was $100.
Okay.
And it's quaint and funny to think that you might get away with all of the services that you're currently subscribing to for $100.
Yeah.
Now, right, there's still a concept of discretionary spend, but that number is elastic, and it depends on what services you're subscribing to, what services you can bundle. Mm-hmm. Because as we saw, the telecoms were at one point trying to bundle it all together, and now it's exploding, coming all apart. Right. And it will likely continue to shake out. But no, I don't think we've seen a saturation. And John would probably tell you that, if you're talking about 14,000 channels, right. No, it doesn't seem that it's saturated at all. No.
And that was just in one region. No, just kidding. But no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Karl, what's your take on that with respect to, I mean, and consolidation in different ways. I mean, not just, acquisition, but also, even bundling, because of course, Disney Plus is, I mean, they've got the, the Hulu, ESPN Plus, Disney, I mean, right. So what do you see from your position?
Yeah, I think we have a long way to go. I think there's still an appetite for all this content. I think that, our numbers show just the time spent per day streaming or using a television is just in remarkable numbers in neighborhoods, at 8, 10, 12 hours a day of consumption. And, that's shifted certainly with COVID. It's at an all-time high. But who would ever thought? I mean, there were numbers early when I was at TiVo that we thought, with more control and choice, viewers would watch, prime time all the time, whatever they wanted at their disposal. And I think that's come to bear now in this world. There's just so much to watch, and I think you'll find something new every day, and that's true with what we offer and what our partners offer. And that to me is really exciting, because you can find something that's really intriguing, fall in love with an actor or a plot, and you're off to the races, and you find yourself binging like we talked earlier, and you're done with 4 seasons before you know it, and then you're back on the hunt. So I still think that we have a long way to go. I think certainly to the panelists, brand is key. You see that, back to your point, Disney Plus. One call out I'd say, and probably others on this phone have experienced, is the studios had a tough year. The number of releases was half over prior years.
Right.
But out of this kind of the tide going out, along came PVOD, and it kind of broke the shackles, right, of the distribution of the studios. And Disney Plus did a perfect thing in the fall with Milan 2, straight to the PVOD, and that really just, I think, woke a lot of people up, and then Warner and Paramount and many others are now following suit. It's
as they should. I mean, Steven Soderbergh tried this years ago in sort of in smashing the window, and I think that DTC can do that, particularly if it's original content or even library content. What the hell? I mean, I threw down for Disney Plus because of Hamilton. Hello, that's bloody obvious. I mean, if somebody, ESPN Plus now is the rights to La Liga, so I can get rid of my Fubo subscription. So there's consolidation, which I find, very interesting. But we're going to get to a couple of questions, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. So I know there are a couple of questions here. So hold on. For some reason, my Q&A is stuck here, but yes. So Elizabeth Carmel, thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us. She asks, can you please offer advice to a niche OTT channel with apps for all devices on how to be part of the new Roku channel offerings, and also the best way to obtain new subscribers in a way that makes sense from an ROI standpoint across all platforms? So John, what do you have to say to Elizabeth?
Yeah, so yeah, what I touched on earlier is it could be challenging. We talked about niche earlier, to break through as a standalone, right? Mm-hmm. And so there are other touch points. One, as Elizabeth said, is these fast, and Karl talked about on Samsung, are these fast channels, right? So you're actually seeing like companies like AEN, that they're launching these fast channels because they have this massive library and they can curate these channels. So they're not launching the traditional A&E or Lifetime on the Roku channel, but they're launching these curated channels for OTT. So I absolutely think that is one opportunity to increase discoverability. We also have the premium subscriptions on the Roku channel. So we've got 50 premium subscriptions. So you're seeing some partners launch a standalone, and then they're also launching a SVOD within the Roku channel to enhance discovery. And then her other point is, yes, what I talked about earlier in terms of the streamer's journey is that using the data and listening to what their KPIs are, we do work. We have a team that focuses on tier 2 or not tier 1 channels, and they're incredibly performance focused, right? Their margins are a lot slimmer, and so you really have to be very prescriptive about driving measurable outcomes that fit within their margins. And so it's really leveraging everything we've talked about in this last hour: the data, the limiting the waste, and being very prescriptive. So those are a couple options.
Yeah, great answer. I'm sure Elizabeth will take that to heart, and she'll probably connect with you, hopefully. So second question, and this is really just to kind of go to what I asked Ian about his wireline internet and television. An anonymous attendee, just wonder what company that anonymous attendee works for, says that the J.D. Power 2021 wireline internet and television surveys published on September 21st with the press release on the 23rd. So there you go. So mark your calendar. That's sort of the autumnal equinox that comes out. and maybe Ian can give a preview at that August streaming media event. But I really do think that that's, I think it's an incredibly interesting time to talk about that, given the offload from and not just here in the U.S. I mean, consideration that I mentioned from BT for BT Sport, and maybe we'll see the same from Orange and others, which would get very, very interesting. But yeah, I think I'm going to have some final thoughts before we wrap up. Ian, we'll start for you. What do you expect to see in the next sort of 6 to 12 months with respect to this this whole AVOD, SVOD industry in terms of growth?
Well, dusting off my crystal ball, because as we see, this industry changes every day, and as how quickly HBO, Warner Media rather, had disappeared, or off to Discovery. Sorry, I've got an 11-year-old banging on the door.
That's all right. Yes,
working safer at home has been a treat.
Yeah, you manage it very well, sir.
I'm trying really hard.
We all try. You succeed. Yeah.
Well, we'll find out, because I had to mention it.
Yeah.
But you asked a legit question, which is what's going to happen in the next 6-12 months in this space. And I think we'll continue to see really interesting entrants come to bear. They're going to have to rely on brand and really exciting content just to have the right to play and get in the door, and then have a fairly reasonable library to keep them in the door, and then keep them excited, keep them engaged with high quality content, with excellent performance and reliability of the channel itself, in order to remain in the game.
Yeah. Karl, what about you? Again, sort of looking a bit downfield.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I hate to use the cliche, but I'd say the stream is alive, and, we see it firsthand here, and it's exciting to see. I mean, I think that, quite honestly, there's a lot of pent up content that's coming. I think the studios have kind of woken up to the fact that they have to be better prepared for moments like this. I think the numbers to some degree will return to their normal levels. This time last year, we saw a huge uptick, as sports dropped off, in came the streamers, the cord cutters, and that acceleration.
Great. Then thank you for mentioning that. In the US, we were without pro sports for 4.5 months almost. So
yeah. It's great to see NBA, and we got the Olympics coming. The Olympics are coming back. So, I'm
sure Samsung has a few sponsorships with the Olympics, right?
Yeah, we might just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, it's go time. Finally, that bucket of cold water has been thrown on the traditional lumbering linear business that we've all come to love and learn. And, I think the wake-up call is here, and in comes the the data, the tech, the ad tech, and the sophistication, and a lot of smart people that are now quite able, and they've got willing partners, again, that traditional side that really wanted to lean in and clearly are committed to the long haul. And it's definitely the golden age of television, and it's exciting.
Yeah, that's, and John, what's your view? Is it similar to Karl's?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we would all agree, and I think everyone needs to take a deep breath. It's the early days, right? A lot of us on this call are living and breathing it, and we've been doing it for a while. Very early days. Ian, you said there's going to be various cycles here. I think it was fascinating in the middle of the pandemic that traditional media companies like Disney, NBCU, Viacom, CBS, all announced that they were pivoting their entire business to streaming in the middle of the pandemic. And that, to me, that was like, for us, Karl and I kind of live in this M&E space. That was kind of the game changer. And now it's like full speed ahead.
Yeah. And one thing, and it was your line, Karl, on the stream is live. Not for nothing, but the sort of the pink elephant in the room with all of this is really just the strength of our networks. I mean, thank God. I mean, and this is even before 5G is rolled out, which really won't hit consumers in the U.S. for a couple of years. But that's really I think the secret sauce and the magic for all of this. Yes, I'm glad that the telecom folks have thrown off their media assets so they can focus more on that great quality of service. And Yeah, and thank you for watching. And back to you, Eric. Thank you, the whole team, Eric and Steve Nathans and Sheila Williston and everyone. It's been a fabulous conversation, and I could have gone on for another hour at least. And hopefully we'll all get together in real life, right? In Huntington Beach. I marked it in my calendar, Eric.
Absolutely. And if you haven't been to a Streaming Media West at Huntington Beach, you definitely want to. It's a great venue. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris, for moderating such a great conversation. And thanks again to Signiant for being our diamond sponsor. We'll see you in another half hour with a discussion about how to move streaming production to the cloud.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up, it's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signiant. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signiant handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today, a journey without limits.